Congratulations on submitting an application to the Institute of Education Sciences. IES is the nation's premier source for research, evaluation, and statistics that can help educators, policymakers, parents, and other stakeholders improve outcomes for all students. This video depicts what happens to an application once it's been submitted to grants.gov and enters our system. This process can take several months, and transparency about our pre-review processes is important to us. Specifically, we'll be describing the general processes related to two of IES's centers, the National Center for Education Research, or NCER, and the National Center for Special Education Research, or NCSER. These centers are responsible for writing and releasing the Requests for Applications, or RFAs.
IES's Standards and Review Office handles the peer review process. To ensure that the process is as objective as possible, peer review activities and the standards and review staff are purposefully situated outside of the previously mentioned IES centers that actually fund the research. Once you have submitted your application to grants.gov, it is transmitted for screening and review to the IES's Peer Review Information Management Online System, or website, called PRIMO. Within 3 to 4 weeks, all applicants are invited to the PRIMO Application Notification System, ANS, to track the status of their application. Once applications are in PRIMO, IES Standards and Review staff begins screening them to determine which submissions meet all the criteria. Does the application address all the requirements in the RFA? Once the IES staff ensures the application is complete and meets all RFA requirements, it is assigned to a peer review panel. For the past few years, IES has received around 1,000 applications. Those that follow all the RFA guidelines move forward into the next stage of review and are assigned to peer review panels for evaluation. Throughout this entire process, IES actively recruits experts in research and practice to participate on peer review panels to carefully and confidentially review, critique, and score these applications. After panel members have been determined and applications have been screened, the applications are sorted to the most appropriate panels for review. This sorting is done based on each application's content and where it might fit best in terms of panel expertise. Now, on to the next stage of review, peer review. A minimum of 2 primary reviewers are assigned to each application. However, depending upon the type and scope of research being proposed, up to 4 primary reviewers may be assigned. They are given ample time to review all of their assigned applications and are expected to read each application in its entirety, consider its strengths and weaknesses, then write a critique of it addressing the review criteria in the RFA. In addition to the written critique, the primary reviewers score their assigned applications in 2 ways. Criterion scores are based on how well the submission met each of the review criteria, and an overall score summarizes an assessment of the quality of the entire application. Once the peer reviewers have submitted critiques and scores on all applications in the PRIMO system, the IES Standards and Review Office begins the triage process. This involves rank ordering all of the applications reviewed by the panel based on their average overall scores, and those with the most positive scores go forward for consideration and final scoring by the full panel. It's important to remember that the entire application review process can take several months. Of course, you may check on your application status at any time using your PRIMO ANS credentials. If your application does not move forward to peer review, you'll be notified fairly quickly. However, if your application does move forward, you might not receive any updates until after the panel meeting. If your application moves forward to the full panel meeting for discussion, you'll receive feedback on the PRIMO ANS system, including the primary reviewer's critiques, a summary of the panel discussion, and the average criterion and overall scores from the entire panel. If your application does not move forward to the full panel discussion, you will still receive reviewer critiques in the PRIMO ANS system, but without final scores. This is because scores submitted prior to the panel meeting are considered preliminary. If the application isn't discussed by the full panel, it does not receive final scores. If you'd like to see how an application is reviewed during the panel discussion, please watch our peer review panel video.
But I'd like to point out some strengths to the significance plan. One, I think
We understand just how challenging it is to seek scientific research grants, and we hope this video has provided some valuable insight into the stages of the peer review process of IES grant applications. We wish you good luck on your submission.
For more information about applying for an IES grant, you can go to ies.ed.gov/funding. For more information about the screening and review process for submitted applications, go to ies.ed.gov/director/SRO/application_review.asp.